so we do care about the things. It's just, and it's because we care, if I'm hearing you right. It's because we care that we want to make sure they get done as efficiently as possible. We want to make sure that they are done in a way, like the way I think about it is, have you read the book, The Tragedy of American Compassion?
No.
It's a really good book about like old school entitlement programs. Like it's about charities really, and the history of charities in the country. And one of the things they found was that like back in the 1800s, there were all these private charities, and then there started to be like government run soup kitchens and stuff that opened up. And the private run ones had stipulations on what you had to do in order to be there. Like you had to be working, you had to be doing this stuff. They used the term deserving and undeserving poor, which I think probably was fine then, but now you couldn't say that. But you get the idea. Like the undeserving poor would be someone who was just there to eat your food and not try to get out of their situation. All right. And so they were saying like, look, if you're going to do this, like you can't be here. We're here to help you. We're not here to like be your permanent caretaker. But the government run soup kitchens and stuff didn't have any of those stipulations. And so if you're a person who is, destitute, and you can go and get some soup for free, or you can go and get some soup for work and stuff, well, most times you're going to go and get the one for free. And so the private ones closed down. And even though they were helping people get out of that situation, and the government run ones like had to expand because the amount of people that were in need grew because the private ones were closing down. And then it's just the government run ones doing it, but those didn't have the same stipulations. So they weren't helping people get out of their situation. And the same, like the data even today on the dollars that are spent on charities versus government is about an inverse ratio. It's about I think it's between 10 and 30% of a dollar that is in a government bureaucracy is actually spent on the cause, and the rest is spent on the bureaucracy. And it's between, I think, 90 and 70% in a private charity of that dollar that actually goes to the cause, and then 10 to 30 goes to sustaining it because they're incentivized to be as financially efficient as possible. But that's a whole other thing. Okay, so we're thinking about, so we just want to kind of dust some of this stuff off a little bit and be very clear in what we're saying. So we're not saying we don't think there aren't things that aren't important, right? We're saying that this is about making sure that it gets done as efficiently as possible because it's important, okay, so let's talk about how we would consider, like, whenever you think about the scope of government in terms of what it does, what do you think are some of the parameters that we would use to consider that? I have my own thoughts that I've told you, but I want to hear what you think. What parameters should we use for thinking about that?
Yeah, so, a lot of people like to refer, or people, I'd say conservatives again, would refer to the concept of positive and negative rights. Negative rights is really that's another word I would say for liberty. It's what you're protecting people from. You're not giving them anything. You're not giving them a good or service. You're protecting them from something. So, negative right is your rights to life. Basically, you can't, it's illegal to murder, right? You cannot, your liberty to murder someone else is not a liberty that extends that far because of someone else's liberty to live, right? So they want to protect that. That's a negative right. When we start getting into positive rights, you're now talking about goods and services and different actions they can take to provide you something. So there are some like small instances of positive rights. It's kind of a lot of people refer to your rights to have a lawyer. Basically, when you're too poor, can't afford a lawyer, you can always take a public one, a public defense. Although that there are ways kind of around that to really say that is a negative right. Not as much of a positive right. But when we start getting these positive rights and we start to give, a good thing is, when we start to give this government charity and this idea that, happens a lot, I'll refer to them as the left. I don't like to normally use these broad terms like Democrats and Republicans. I'm gonna say people who are more left leaning, the progressives, would argue, that we can use government resources to help, the hungry. You can have a public soup kitchen might help. But what you were speaking of with the private soup kitchen would be to incentivize certain behaviors. What outcome are you looking for? Are you looking to solve poverty, or are you looking to change the behavior that leads to poverty? When you try to solve something, that just means you can I can solve a lot of things. I can do my child's homework. That gets their homework done, problem solved. but does that help them at all? Because the intention of homework is not to do it and just get it done, or hopefully not. And you see bad teachers that'll do busy work, and normally you refer to them as bad teachers, right? What they're trying to do is incentivize this behavior to work hard on a specific problem or learn whatever they need to. So that is, their responsibility to make sure that they change their behavior, or create just a better behavior that helps them learn more in the future, right? So yeah, when we talk about what government really ought to do, it is to protect the individual. You can't have other people trying to harm other people and take away their rights and liberties. So, is there protection there? Also to protect basically the nation state. You have your national defense that just make sure that they look out for the interests of you, but it's not internal. You don't use the army to solve internal problems state to state, or you shouldn't. It's always, pointed outward. So that's an important, I would say, obligation of the federal government to do those things. Border security is something that I would throw in there, because it again is protecting the citizens who have kind of paid into the system, and make sure that they can have their liberties protected under the law. So yeah, a lot of these outward things protecting us from exterior actors, I guess, is something that the federal government should be doing, and really that's a majority of what they should be doing. There's a lot of things that they do, like Social Security, that really it was a great idea to start out with, but it kind of seemed like you're just kicking the buck down the road rather than solving the problem you said to solve. So that's something that really turned into a positive, right? And now we're starting to see that in like 30 to 35 years that well will be dry, and I'm not probably going to benefit anything from that. Which is, if you start cutting it off or start tearing it back, because obviously there's people who paid into it already, you got to give them some sort of benefit. To me, it's like if you start cutting it off and I don't receive any, but that doesn't mean that I don't have to keep paying into it, then I'm totally fine with it. I'm willing to give that up, but that's not really something that's supposed to fit in the scope of government. So to go back and answer your question in a long roundabout way, the federal government is meant to protect liberty. It is not meant to give you things, not meant to give you all these positive rights. It's not a service. We have the free market; those provide goods and services. The federal government is supposed to protect you from each other sometimes. When it comes to obviously crime and stuff like that. But it is meant to be more of a protector from people try to intrude on your liberty, more so than try to provide things for you. Liberty doesn't really fit into the I'm going to give you a good or service. That's not really what liberty is. And we try to kind of fit that in there and say, well, if you're too poor, then you can't do these things and you can't live your life. That's not liberty. That's not within the scope of liberty. You're supposed to be able to provide for yourself, but be able to provide for yourself. If you find yourself you can't provide for yourself because someone shut you down, someone's locking you in, if we're forced to stay at home and you can't provide for your family, we're starting to see an intrusion on liberty.
Happened.
And that's not, no, I mean, this is all theoretical, just, obviously. So yeah, that's my idea, and the original founding idea of the federal government is to protect liberty.